gave way.
Shalom, people. Praise the Lord, glory to Yahweh, Bashim Yahshua, Bashim Kakodash. Double honors to God, fathers, teachers at GMS, the apostles who be willing to teach. I'm just going to get a few videos and scripture and just close it out.
China gave way and came crashing down on the street below. And as the dust settled, the full scale of the huge landslide is revealed. Giant boulders have buried shops and residential buildings in the city of Chongqing, where rescuers have so far pulled 10 people trapped but alive from under the rubble, with many more feared dead. We don't know what caused the landslide, but it's monsoon season in China, and this region has seen extreme bouts of heavy rain, exacerbated of course by climate change, which has led to saturated soil and catastrophic mudslides. And in America, monsoon-like rains have battered Texas, with 2 so far killed and hundreds rescued, as the state's governor warned worse was to come.
We're facing record-shattering rainfall that leads to very dangerous flooding.
It wasn't flooding, but fierce fire that stopped this Canadian freight train literally in its tracks in Ontario. Amazingly, the drivers managed to stay calm as the inferno raged all around.
Oh yeah, look over there. You guys got a light now or what?
One of more than 800 wildfires currently burning across the country. And it's smoke from those Canadian wildfires that's rendered this famous US skyline almost unrecognisable. But that's the Empire State Building on the left, as New Yorkers, already roasting under temperatures above 90 degrees Fahrenheit, were told to stay indoors or wear masks if they had to go outside. The city's mayor said climate change was only making things worse.
I'll be honest with you, whether we're speaking about the heat, whether we're speaking about the air quality, or whether we're even speaking about the levels of rainwater and flooding in our city, I am concerned. And I'm concerned because what we see is that the climate crisis exacerbates so much of what our city is facing.
There was a similar acrid cloud blanketing Chicago, the capital in Washington, D.C., and in Michigan, where this bridge on the border connects the US and Canada. Pollution levels were higher than anywhere else in the world.
Because we got to think about the people who have asthma and bad lungs.
You think you're okay, and next thing you know, you can't breathe and have to go to the hospital.
You can feel a little bit in your breathing, and you just know that it's not good to breathe in all these toxins.
All of this, the flames, the floods, the fumes, all more evidence of the deadly effects of burning fossil fuels that heat the planet and, as we've seen in the Highlands of Scotland this week, scorch the earth, turning parched forests into tinder ready to ignite. The charred remains a visible reminder of the challenge facing Andy Burnham as he enters Downing Street on Monday, with a priority, he says, to drive growth in every postcode. But can he achieve that and reduce emissions at the same time?
What is completely false is what we've seen bandied about too much in these last few weeks, is the idea that climate commitment reduces growth, is in conflict with growth. It's completely the other way around. Strong climate investment in the things I've just described will drive growth forward. And without that growth, everything else is going to be so much more difficult.
Around 300 hectares have been burned in Scotland, but in Aragon in northern Spain, more than 12,000 have been destroyed as firefighters struggle to contain the blaze. And to think we're only in mid-July, as weather experts here say Britain and the world faces yet more heat waves in the months to come.
Anything you can dream about here, you can make. Big house!
It's Peter Mind.
Venezuelan government, who helped and is more needed?
Were really terrible. I think everybody coincides in saying that the initial response, 48 to 72 hours, which of course is the crucial period for getting people out alive, there really was next to no government presence on the ground in the particularly hard-hit area. And when it did appear, it was totally inadequate. Lack of heavy equipment, the rescue crews from civil defense and the firefighters really had no equipment. Even basic stuff like uniforms and boots, I mean, they were lacking. And the uniform security services are accused of basically having stood around, if anything, stood in the way of rescue efforts. There was a large international response. Now, of course, we're into the recovery phase and search and rescue is really over. And those teams have gone back. But there are still field hospitals from many countries that are really acting in a extremely helpful way in dealing with the aftermath of this. Many people, of course, in need of medical attention and even psychological attention.
Phil, I know we want to look at this kind of in complement with the political situation on the ground, and as we kind of make our way there, let me just ask you to contrast for us the way that the government has responded to this crisis with the landslides that we had many years ago now. So Christina asking about international aid. I know that Delcy Rodriguez, the interim president, has reached out to the IMF for additional support. Contrast just the level of kind of international aid and outreach she has been able to at least ask for, trying to tap this time around versus then, as we've seen the country going through this strange and novel political transition of a sort.
Yeah, it's interesting. 1999, when the last disaster happened in that same area, floods and landslides, killed, again, thousands of people. It was the first year that I was living in Venezuela. It was the first year I was down here as a reporter. And one of the things that really stood out then was the fact that Hugo Chavez, who had just come to power less than a year earlier, he refused US aid. In fact, he sent back the US naval vessels that were on their way to help out at that point. Because now we're in a situation, very strange and paradoxical situation, where since January the 3rd, Venezuela's great, at least over the last couple of decades, great geopolitical rival and adversary, the United States, is now acting in partnership with a rather reluctant Delcy Rodriguez government. But at least that has opened up the country to the possibility of more international aid. And in fact, many countries, not just the United States, but countries that have been very adversarial with countries in some cases with which Venezuela doesn't have any political relations, any diplomatic relations.
The best time of the year is
After that destructive water main break in West Hollywood, many residents are now wondering if their insurance will cover the flood damage.
There's so many questions that our David Lazarus has more on what renters and homeowners need to know before filing a claim.
Hey there, let's talk about the water main break in Hollywood from an insurance perspective. First of all, if you've got flood insurance, which you almost certainly don't, you got nothing to worry about. Flood insurance, by the way, costs about $1,000 a year. The typical residential or commercial property coverage, it does not cover flooding. But here's what you need to know. If a pipe breaks on your property, well, your insurance will probably cover any ensuing damage. If a pipe breaks off of your property, which is the case with the water main, forget about it. All bets are off at that point. What happens then? Well, any damage that ensues will probably result in a claim to the DWP. There are going to be inundated claims related to this. What are they going to do? Well, they will do their thing, but then they're going to go to the Public Utilities Commission and say, hey, this is a big hit for us. We need to raise rates. That's something.
Well, as you can see, it is pretty intensely raining here in Thunder Bay, bringing some reprieve here to northwestern Ontario as they continue to deal with it.
Well, some of the smoke is now lifted in Washington DC, but it's still pretty gross here. You can feel it in your chest, in your throat, in your eyes. You can smell it. Earlier, you could almost taste the smoke in the air. It's some of the worst pollution that Washington DC has ever recorded. It's currently the third most polluted city in the world. Now, Detroit is number one, and both of those US cities are now currently more polluted than places like Delhi in India or Jakarta in Indonesia. And that's all because of these 800 or so wildfires that are burning across Canada that have left huge swathes of the United States shrouded in smoke. That's caused air pollution problems for over 100 million people. And emergency rooms right across the northeast of the US have reported an uptick in presentations, in patients coming in, and health officials are warning people, particularly vulnerable populations, children, elderly people, people with underlying health conditions, to stay inside. But of course, plenty of people are not heeding those warnings. Here's what a few had to say earlier today.
You can't see any of the city anymore. You can almost taste the smoke today. I think yesterday it was much milder, so we're definitely seeing it get worse.
I guess I've been looking at the air quality index and, you know, just looking at across the nation, like where it's like red and where it's green, and, you know, I don't know, it's just very concerning, yeah.
Collectively, as a civilization, I think we have to do more, show more in terms of protecting the environment. So this, you know, this is going to happen, but it's happening too often.
Now, the US President Donald Trump has weighed in on all of this. He's taken to Truth Social to blame Canada for failing to maintain its forests and causing this huge problem here in the US. He has said the United States is being unnecessarily invaded by filthy, polluted and unhealthy air, the quality of which is dangerous and totally unacceptable. He has said that he is going to call the Canadian Prime Minister and try to get some answers, and he also hinted that he may add the cost of this pollution to the tariffs that Canada already has to pay. Now, earlier, the Premier of Ontario, where many of these fires are, responded to similar claims by other Republicans by reminding them just how many times his firefighters have helped the US battle their fires, and suggested that maybe they could do the same. Now, on Sunday, we're expecting this World Cup final to take place in New Jersey, but currently that stadium is also blanketed in smoke, so organisers will absolutely be keeping an eye on the weather. They'll be keeping an eye on what happens with this smoke and hoping that thunderstorms, which are expected to roll through over the weekend, and a low pressure system will hopefully dissipate that smoke, because otherwise it'll be pretty unpleasant and possibly dangerous conditions for those soccer players to play in.